Well, it's Tuesday at 3 o'clock, so it's time to talk to our guy, our Odyssey NFL insider, Ross Tucker. You can hear him on Westwood One doing the games, as well as the Ross Tucker podcast, and he joins us on the Harbor One hotline. Ross, we were just talking about this 7-6 football team that currently holds the 7th seed in the AFC. If they had a polished, competent offensive coordinator, would they win 2 more games and be 9-4?
Yeah, probably. I mean, they'd at least have 8 wins and be in a much better spot, I think, for the playoffs than they are right now, especially when you look at their upcoming schedule. Let's put it this way. They play the Raiders this week. If Josh McDaniels was still in New England, and there's a chance maybe he'll be back next year again already, but if he was still in New England, I don't know if they'd be 9-4, but I think they'd at least be 8-5. Yeah, I mean, 2 games is a lot, but it's certainly possible that they would be 9-4. But I'm pretty confident they'd be 8-5.
So the one thing that's kind of been, standing out to us over the last 2 games at least is Mac Jones is behavior, his frustration that shows on the field or on the sideline showed up again last night. Do you think that's a good thing for the offense and for him to kind of be more demonstrative and aggressive with how things work?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, Christian, because it's like if Brady was doing stuff like that, you would say you love it and the passion and the intensity. So it's like, well, if it's Mac Jones doing it, I don't know how to verbalize it. I don't love it. I don't feel like he's kind of earned that. But I also don't know that I'm being entirely fair. All I know is
well, hold on, wait a second. Why do you think he would? Why do you think that a starting quarterback in his second year that played in the Pro Bowl doesn't deserve it? What else does he have to do to kind of be able to speak his mind?
Well, I think he can speak his mind. I think it's the way in which he goes about it. I'm just not a fan of it. I'm telling you, if Brady was doing it, I'd feel a lot differently about it. And I'm even admitting that that's probably not fair. But all I can tell you is when I watch the game and I see Brady doing that, I'm like, yeah, get him, Brady. When I see Mac Jones doing that, I don't know. It doesn't. I don't feel the same way about it.
You think it's disrespectful?
I'm not saying that's logical. I'm just saying that's how I feel.
Oh, so that's just your personal feelings on those types of situations overall.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, look, I do think he should be involved, and clearly he feels like he should be as well. But I guess here's how I look at it. If I'm when I was in New England, that was my 5th and 6th year, right? If Brady was yelling at me, I'd be like, yeah, my bad. You're right, Tom, my bad. If Mac Jones was yelling at me, I feel like I'd kind of be like, hey, listen, dude, you've sucked half the games this year, so what are you talking about? You know?
Mm-hmm.
If you're Brady and you almost always play good and you've won championships and you've played at a really high level for a long time, okay, that's fine. But if you're Mac Jones and you're a bunch of years younger than me, and you've played like crap in a bunch of games this year, maybe just shut up and play better.
Well, along those lines, Ross, we were just discussing Troy Aikman. I mean, he completely ripped the offensive play caller situation in New England, which is something that we've done essentially since the summer when it became apparent that's what it was. But to hear it on a national broadcast was something different. Do you feel like at this point it's unfair to, throw so much criticism at Matt Patricia for the position that Bill Belichick really put him in?
That is an awesome point, Megan, and I'm glad you brought it up because I have no problem with Bill's preference to have guys switch sides of the ball. I actually think it's brilliant. I love it. But to throw someone who's never called offensive plays before immediately into that position was, I think, putting Matt Patricia in a really bad spot. You could have talked me into O-line coach for this year, and then maybe next year he's calling plays. or you could have talked me into a bunch of things. But to go right into it like he did, it just didn't really seem like a great move by Bill. And I think we've seen in recent years several instances in which Bill thinks he's the smartest guy, and maybe he is, I don't know, but seems like a bunch of them have backfired the last few years.
Talking to Ross Tucker here in the Harbor One Hotline. Ross, to that point, there's been a few people mentioning that, maybe Bill's on the hot seat. And to that point, like the clock management at times, looking undisciplined, not a well-coached team, the coaches he has hired, the free agents he's brought in. Do you believe the seat is getting a little bit hotter for Bill? Even though he's the greatest coach of all time, what he's accomplished, but we're evaluating the last couple of years and moving forward.
Right. Well, first of all, I don't believe he's the greatest coach of all time. So that's all. If you want to have that conversation, we can have that.
Well, who is?
Who's
your guy?
Let's go there.
Well, there's probably several I think it would be in the mix. One for me for sure would be Joe Gibbs.
Oh, my God.
Well, the Joe Gibbs in his normal days, not when you played for him, Christian.
Worst coach in the history
of
the
NFL.
But
he was losing it back then.
What a dope. I can't even I can't go on
any further. He was losing it when Christian played with them, Ross.
He was the worst coach I've ever had in my life.
Christian
he was 94 years old.
Personal vendetta against old Joe Gibbs.
He's an idiot.
He's a good coach.
So stupid.
Here's what I would tell you about Joe Gibbs, okay? Joe Gibbs won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different non-Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Pretty good.
He went to 4 Super Bowls. He also made the playoffs with 3 more non-Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So he made the playoffs with 6 different quarterbacks and won Super Bowls with 3 different, none of whom are even close to Hall of Famers. Like, that's crazy impressive to me. Belichick is a fantastic coach. I was incredibly impressed when I was up there with his attention to detail, especially like when he would talk about the other team. I mean, it was his game plans, all that stuff. But I'm sorry, guys, like, you got to have more success without Brady. I mean,
you don't have to. You do not have to say sorry, because I absolutely refuse to agree with you in any way, shape, or form
about
when
Gibbs.
It goes to Joe Gibbs. I refuse.
Well, I'm just saying, to that point, Ross, like,
terrible coach.
That's fine. And some people I know are feeling that, and even more so now as the years away from Brady kind of creep in and his teams aren't competitive, or I should say like a threat in the AFC. But what about moving forward with him? If this is a long-term rebuild or whatever it is, I mean, how many more years does he want to coach and think this organization has a tough decision on their hands in the next year or 2?
Well, I think how they finish this year matters. And I think the out after this year will be the offensive play caller situation. And so he'll have a conversation with Mr. Kraft, and they'll bring in somebody else to be the offensive play caller. And you guys will talk all off season about how everything's fixed and everything will be good and blah, blah, blah. But then if they're mediocre to bad again next year, then I think we're having a different conversation. I often think about what Kraft is thinking sitting up there. If they don't make the playoffs again this year, at some point you have to start to ask yourself, well, what are we building towards? And I think that's the really interesting thing, especially with Mac not playing as well this year. It's like, going into next year, what do you really feel like you're building upon? We could talk about a lot of the free agent signings that haven't been very good and the money they've spent on them. I mean, unbelievable money for guys that have done nothing. It's really unbelievable. We could talk about some of the draft picks, some of the coaching moves. It does feel like he's flipping in terms of the game day coach. Let's put it this way. I think there's a 99% chance Belichick's back next year if he wants to be. But I also think if Robert Kraft was being honest, he would tell you that he's at least started to consider the possibility of a post-Belichick life in New England.
Make an exit plan. So just real quick before my last question. Wait, did you play for Joe Gibbs?
I did, yeah, 07. I got hurt in the third preseason game, so I was on IR. I didn't go to one game. I sold my tickets for furniture. But it was amazing because we made the playoffs, so I got $18,000.
Yeah, so we just missed each other because I was 06 and then you were 07. But anyways, okay, so fine. So you actually were in those meetings.
Did you live in Virginia or Maryland?
I lived in Ashburn, Virginia.
See, so did I lived in Ashburn
No,
also.
I don't know why you guys all do that.
It's because it's nicer. It's right next to the
No. That's because that's where Redskin Park is.
Yeah, it's close to the facility.
Redskin Park is in Ashburn, Virginia. You don't want to. If you live in Maryland, that's like an hour drive.
I know. I'm just from Maryland, so I have a bias.
Right,
you know how it is.
So, last question before we get off the Redskins, and Chris Cooley can come on next. We'll have him on, and he'll do a whole breakdown of the tight position. This game against the Raiders. All right, just give me your quick, 45-second breakdown of what needs to happen for the Patriots to win this game, Ross.
I think it's a gigantic game for both teams. It's a must-win game for the Patriots to make the playoffs. Have to, no questions asked. Always curious about the whole McDaniels versus Belichick. I always feel like it's a Princess Bride thing, McDaniels knows that Belichick knows that he likes this, but Belichick knows that McDaniels knows that Belichick knows. I wonder which coach gets in their head a little bit. They have to stop Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. I mean, I don't know if Renfro or Waller are back, but that's all the Raiders do is run Jacobs. He's a free agent. They're running him into the ground, or throw the ball to Devontae Adams. Very curious. Belichick's usually pretty good about not letting you beat him with your best thing, so I'll be curious to see how well he defends Jacobs and Adams.
All right, Ross, listen, man, we appreciate the time as we do every single Tuesday. So enjoy the week. Good talking to you.
Absolutely. Joe Gibbs is the man. See ya.
I hate him. I hate you, Ross Tucker.